How you guys doing today? My name is Matthew Sikes. I'm going to show you to get the look as good as it tastes. We're going to be preparing redfish today to get that finished product that you see in every seafood restaurant. A couple of facts about redfish. The redfish gets its name from the darker red tint on its back, as well as is commonly found in the Atlantic Ocean as well as the Gulf Coast of Mexico. The most common shredded redfish is the spot on its tail. Okay, gathering materials to get that great cut fish. You're going to need a boning knife, which this boning knife is used to cut closer to the bone to get as much fillet as possible. As well as needle nose pliers. This is used after you've cut the fillet off to pull all the pin bones out of the fillet you have. Of course, you don't want to eat the bones. As well as a cutting board to cut the fish, you get a great cut fish, as well as not ruining the table as the knife as well. As a scale as well, you're going to use this to get the ounce that you're required to as a restaurant, as well as that you're preferring to. We're going to try to hit 10 ounces today. If we don't get that, we're going to use the other fillet and cut it in half and use it to get that right 10 ounce fillet. As well as a sanitizer bucket we're going to use today to keep that everything sanitized and safe as possible. This is a usual setup. Of course, the sanitizer bucket as well as a redfish, a chef knife, and the scale today. Okay, cutting the fish today. We're going to be going behind the gills, cutting from the all the way to the bone as well to the back to the tail. After we remove the fillet, we're going to remove the fillet completely off of the fish. So we're going to start today using the knife right here below the gills, being careful not cutting yourself. You're going to cut all the way to the bone, all the way to the bone, and have it hit the backbone here. So I'm going to turn the knife and I'm going to cut all the way to the tail using the backbone as a guide. Being very, very careful not to ruin the fillet. Be careful the very first time you cut the fillet, because the first time you probably will lose a lot of meat. I'm just following the backbone, trying not to lose any meat as possible to the tail. Okay, I've got to the tail. I'm going to cut through the tail and finish the cut. So now I'm going to pull the fillet away from the bone and try to use a knife and cut closer to the bone to get the fillet completely off towards the belly. Being very careful not to cut the bone, as well as ruin the fish. This right here in the middle is the bone piece of the redfish. I've already cut one side of the fillet so you can see a finished product, as well as to show you to cut the fish. Using the bone as a guide to cut the fish. So I've removed all the way to the belly. Now I'm going to cut the fillet completely off of the fish. So I'm going to set this fillet aside. As you see, I've already cut this redfish. If you can see, the bone has been very cut fillet. You have not left very much meat, as well as right here, right below the belly. There is fillet there, but there's a lot of bones in there, so it's most likely safer to leave the bone on there with the meat. I'm going to cut this fillet off now. I'm going to set this aside. You can use this to cook with. You can use this to cook the head and get the meat off of. But we're going to set this aside today. We're going to set it right here. Okay, this is a piece of redfish fillet. Okay, what we're going to use, you can actually cook this with the scales on it to get this redfish to get a smoky flavor, to get a different flavor of it. We're going to actually cut it off the fillet, or off the skin today. We're going to start from the tail and move up to the meatier part. The most common mistake when you're cutting this is you're going to move the knife back and forth, and you're going to cut the fillet and ruin the fish. You're going to move the skin back and forth. So you're going to start here from the tail, cut downward to the skin, and pull the skin back and forth, not moving the knife. Okay, so we removed the redfish off of the fillet. As you can tell, we haven't left any red fish on the skin itself. This is called a bloodline here. This right here actually gives the flavor, a different flavor to the fish. We're going to try to remove most of that as possible. So this is good that we've left some of this on there. So we're going to set this aside. This is no good anymore, to be trash. So we have a fillet here. As you can tell, it has a couple scales on it. Probably the best way to do it would be to wash it off, or if you like that fishier taste, just leave it like it is. Okay, so we're going to see how many ounces this is so far before we pull the pin bones out of it. So this is 11 ounces. This is a great cut fish. You can use this as it is. It'd probably shrink about an ounce when cooking. A good cooking way is you can blacken it, you can fry it, you can charbroil it, you can pan broil it. Most fillets taste better blackened. I prefer as well as pan broiled, but it's just to your taste. Okay, we're gonna go back to this fillet. As you can see right here, we have this other fillet that we cut off earlier. We're going to cut this here and cut all the meat off of it, starting from the tail, moving all the way up to the meatier part of the fillet. As again, we have not left any fish on the scales. We've just left that bloodline there that actually gives a bad taste to the fish. This one looks a little smaller, so we're going to see how many ounces it is. This is about 10 ounces, so it's still a good cut fish. You could probably use it at any restaurant today, but we're gonna actually pull the pin bones out and see how many ounces we get now. This will actually tear some of the fish up, so you have to be very, very careful. You're gonna be going right from the bloodline. As you see here, there's a bloodline here. I could actually feel it. There's bones, feel like needles all the way through the fish. You're gonna wanna pull as much as possible out before you cook it because you're gonna be tasting that when you cook it. So right now, as I'm doing, is I'm pulling a pin bone out, slowly and surely. As you can see, that's actually a pin bone. It actually doesn't cook through, doesn't get softer, so it really does hurt when you're actually eating it. You could swallow it and hurt somebody. So now we're just going to be going, slowly and steady, pulling them pin bones out right there, as you can see. Set to the side. I'm going to put my knife in the sanitizer water. So I'm pulling the pin bones out slowly and steady. Like I said, the best way to cook this fish is blackening. Some nice cayenne pepper, some salt and pepper, as well as you can pan broil it, which is a little seasoned flour on a flat top. I'm just pulling these pin bones here. You can fry it, but this is a great fish, so you're not going to ruin it by putting that batter on and frying it. Go. All right. So we have pulled all the pin bones off of this fish here. Let's pull all these scales out, put it on the side here. And see, we have a couple scales. We'll probably wash that off to get that taste. Let's see how many ounces this is after we pull the pin bones off. Okay, we lost about a ½ ounce. So we're going to set this aside because we're not at the size we're actually wanting. Here's this beautiful fillet here. We're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to be pulling the pin bones from the bloodline out of the middle of it, so we're not going to consume them bones. There we go. Ugh, can't get all of them out. There we go, pulling all the bones out. There we go, there's a long bone there. This was actually off of the gut of the fish itself. We probably should have cut that out. What we're going to do now, we're going to use the fillet, the blade itself, the knife, the bone knife, and we're going to cut this fillet right here because there's a lot of bone in there. We're not going to want to consume that bone. Put it on our trash pile here. So we're going to continue pulling the pin bones out of the fish, being very careful not to pull the fillet itself. All right. And more you do this, better you're gonna get at it, guys. Don't be discouraged if you only get a 5-ounce cut of fish the very first time you cut the redfish, or a 6-ounce, or you have a lot of meat on the bone. What you're gonna wanna do is cut the fish, all the fish you can off the bone, pull as much of the bone out of it, and probably deep fry because you have a lot of nuggets today. So a finished cut, pull the red. There's a 5-6 more bones left. I'm gonna pull these out for you. There we go. There's a long one there. Okay. We've completely removed all